Hi, my name is Shark Bogosian. Today in my student art critical video analysis, I'm going to be going over two pieces of artwork that I found to be very culturally significant and incredibly beautiful in their own regard. Each painting has very important characteristics and they were really well done by their artists, which were Albert Bierdstadt and Theodore Gericault. The painting on the left, which was done by Theodore Gericault, which is the first one we'll be going over, was very culturally significant for a time for what it did. Now, Theodore Gericault was born in France. He was a French artist who studied under other French artists. He recreated pieces in the Louvre when he was trying to practice, and he exerted a strong sense of romanticism in the artwork throughout France with his works. But one of his most famous works, which is the Raft of Medusa, it was not well received by the French government of the time, and you'll see why. It actually highlighted the failures of the French Bourbon monarchy at the time because of the story that went behind it. Now, what you'll see on this ship, in this raft, is the remnants of the French brigadier, the Medusa. Now, the Medusa was a French brigadier that was captained by a man who essentially had no merit, no business captaining a ship of that size, and he actually ended up running the ship into a sandbar off the coast of Africa. Now, what he ended up doing was there wasn't enough raft boats for everyone, or lifeboats. So he took the lifeboats for himself and his senior officers and left everyone else to die. Now, what ended up happening was these people took all the remaining supplies that they could find and they built a raft and they set out to sail in hopes that they would survive. But after 13 days at sea, many of them committed fighting amongst themselves, cannibalism, starvation. And after 13 days, only 15 of the people remained. And of these 15 people, this is what Theodore Gericault decided to portray in his painting. So what you'll see is the moment of the greatest desperation for a lot of people on the raft. You see in this far off in the distance is that this ship, the Argus, is actually sailing away. Now the Argus had no idea that these people were left out to sea to starve, or they were never a rescue ship. It was only by chance that the Argus ran into them. But originally the Argus actually sailed past the raft, people on the raft, not realizing that they were there at first. And Theodore Gericault decided to capture this moment because it was the greatest desperation for the people. You'll see in the painting that these people are reaching their hands out in desperation, trying to get the attention of the raft. You'll see a man in the painting holding his body of his son, looking in despair. And Theodore Gericault really did a good job of capturing the sense of desperation, fear, and all these emotions that were going on for the people on the raft. There's a lot of clashing going on. A main thing is the clashing in the colors. You'll see a lot of dark browns, almost sad, depressing colors, and it'll lead into these bright, vivid reds that would almost spark you in excitement. It creates a really confused feeling of like what these people were probably going through, between going through hopelessness and desperation. And just a similar thing can be said about the lighting. The lighting in this portrait is very similar. There's no clear distinction of where the lighting is coming from. It's kind of spread all about, and it's also clashing with a lot of the darkness in the painting too. And this really creates a sense of confusion and desperation. Another thing to note is the structure of the painting. You'll see two distinct triangles. One of them being the people standing in the middle, and the man on the right holding the flag up. These being the apexes of the triangles. Now, the man holding the flag is an African American man, and as you go down the painting, you'll see that as you get closer to the bottom of the triangles or the foreground of the painting, you'll see bodies strewn across the floor. And Theodore Gericault did that on purpose to almost create a sense of organization in the painting almost. And another thing to note is that you'll see a man grabbing his hair in the darkness, almost in fear, like almost crying. And there's a lot of details in this painting, just everything going on. It really creates like a sense of desperation and fear, and you can tell a lot of emotions are swirling throughout this painting. And it was just incredibly well done, and it really highlighted the French Bourbon monarchy's failure throughout this artwork, because it really showed the gruesomeness of what happened, and it really opened the people's eyes to how truly bad this situation was for the people on the raft. And it was really powerful. And interestingly enough, a few years after Theodore Gericault actually managed to pass away at a young age of 32, the July Revolution took place, and this monarchy was actually overthrown. So you could say part of the reason why the July Revolution happened was given in part by Theodore Gericault's work that really opened the people's eyes to the tragedy and the gruesome event that happened. Now, moving on to the next artist, we have Albert Bierdstadt. He was a German-American painter. He was born in Prussia, and he ended up moving to the United States at an early age. He went back to Germany, though, to study in Dusseldorf, where he basically drew landscapes of Europe, and he really honed his technical skill there. Another interesting thing was he was actually a member of the Hudson River School, and they were a group that romanticized nature and pioneered the art movement called Luminism. Now, Luminism was really an interesting thing concept because you'll see in the next painting, the Among the Sierra Nevadas, how the use of luminism really created such a feeling of amazement and transcendentalism throughout the painting. Now, Albert Bierdstadt was actually a very famous American painter of the West, and he loved the West. He would go on expeditions, take sketches, and then eventually go back to his studio in Europe and recreate into these massive basic paintings. And you'll see it in this picture right now. So this is one of his most famous paintings. You have the Among the Sierra Nevadas. Now, Among the Sierra Nevadas is a very beautiful painting because it really captured this essence of nature and serenity. What you'll notice immediately is the sense of lighting. The lighting is flowing through the mountains in the back, and it's almost flowing down like a river throughout the valley. And he did that on purpose because as you see the lighting, the river flows up back into the clouds almost, creating like a sense of like the lighting is coming from the heavens. And this nature was almost a gift from God. And another thing you'll notice is the shadowy effect around the sides of the painting. Now, the shadowy effect that he's created really creates a sense of isolation and serenity, almost as if you just woke up in the middle of the morning and saw this beautiful landscape in front of you. One other thing to note is the color usage. So you'll see in the foreground, it's a lot of darker colors, a lot of earthier colors. And as you roll around the side or go back into the center of the painting towards the waterfall, you'll notice that a lot of the colors are actually lighter colors. You'll get this very sense of earthiness, as you call it. Another thing to note is the line usage. The way he drew the shore really brings the painting together. Almost you can really feel the curvature of the painting. You can see all the detail that he's done. There's incredible detail within this painting as too. Uh, it's just really such a well done work. And these paintings were actually masterpieces, and he would unveil them in these theatric components. So what he would do is that he would have these paintings in his studio, and he would take this masterpiece, this gigantic painting that he made, and tour it across Europe and show all these Europeans that the beauty of the American West. And he would show them off as like almost behind these curtains, like almost like a theatric event, to like rounds of applause from people. And they were really very well received, especially considering that the time that these paintings were coming out, it was around the time of the Civil War in the United States, and a lot of like battles and a lot of turbulence going on. So seeing pieces like these with just serenity and beauty were really well received amongst the public and really desired. So and he took advantage of that. He would really showcase these pieces and ended up selling them for himself so he could fund his lifestyle. And he ended up selling a lot of these works to famous art collectors who ended up donating them to the Smithsonian later on in their lives. So a lot of his works were really well received, and the cultural shift that he created from this painting was well renowned as well. So a lot of Europeans would see these paintings and they would almost create a sense of manifest destiny for themselves as well. They'd wish that they could capture a piece of this beauty for themselves. So a lot of them actually immigrated from Europe to the United States, and that was a very powerful cultural shift that he created, because as this was going on, people would see these paintings and just fall in love with the Americas. And these types of cultural shifts were very difficult at the time, especially in the Civil War. And I just really brought the piece together, and I came to love the story behind it and the way he captured the landscape. And that's all I really have to say about these two paintings. So thank you for listening.